NT Votes 2024. Analysing the issues that count.
I think issues at the moment, it's all crime.
Health, policing, schooling.
I'm not really interested because I'm over corrupt government.
Totally agree.
Heard on the radio earlier that the Northern Territory doesn't gain anything out of any of the gas that gets exported out of here.
Just over the years I've noticed youth crime has increased dramatically.
Health and education right throughout the Northern Territory.
The 2024 Northern Territory election on 105.7 ABC Radio Darwin.
Good morning, Goyder. Good morning, Goyder. We're coming to you from Humpty Doo Plaza in Goyder for the Candidates Forum on 105.7 ABC Radio Darwin this morning. If this voter who spoke to Peter Carlyon is any indication, our panellists today have a lot of work to do.
What are you thinking about ahead of this election?
I think they could all go and jump in the Adelaide River. That's it. They've destroyed the territory as it is. They're fracking, selling off things for mines. Think of the beautiful territory we had.
Is there anything they could say to restore your faith?
Not a thing, because they all talk BS.
It's getting closer and closer day by day. I'm talking about the NT election now just 10 days away on Saturday, the 24th of August. Have you made up your mind? Could we have a change of government? More independence in the House? Last week it was Blaine. This morning we're coming to you live from the rural area and the seat of Goyder. I'm at Humpty Doo Plaza. Come down and say g'day or have a listen. In a moment you'll hear from the candidates, but let's hear from some of the voices of Goyder. Peter Carlyon spoke to voters this week.
I don't want Labor to get in because they're just doing no good and causing all the debts. I worry about the future of my grandchildren and how they're going to get their first homes and things like that. With all the interest rates and so many people are in poverty, total poverty.
Are you hearing anything you like from the politicians?
No, I don't like any of them.
G'day, I'm Dave. What am I thinking about? Personally, I'm not a fan of the CLP in any way, shape or form. Everyone goes on about law and order. I've lived here over 33 years this time and twice before. Nothing has changed except it's got a bit worse. Same offenders doing the same shit, but it's got a bit worse. The reason it's got a bit worse is because the CLP give us the Royal Commission into their misuse, the mistreatment of youths in custody. Then the Liberal government at the time called for a Royal Commission, and since that Royal Commission, youth justice is just Australia-wide, and I think the CLP of the Northern Territory is responsible for that.
Is there anything you want to be hearing more of from politicians? Sounds like you've made up your mind.
I've made up my mind 100%. I vote Labor, I always will. I'll vote Labor till I die. If it wasn't for Labor, we wouldn't have Medicare, we wouldn't have superannuation. All the Liberal government give us was enterprise bargaining, which meant flat rate, casual jobs, no penalty rates. So yeah, I'm opposed in every way, shape or form. The only people who want to vote for CLP are the people who own businesses that are paying people flat rate.
You must like living here if you've lived here such a long time.
I love living here. I wouldn't live anywhere else in the country. I'll die here.
I'm looking for honesty, accountability in government. I think that's been severely lacking. And really, I just see politics as a real mess at the moment. There's nothing can be relied upon. And I just think politicians need to have a good look at themselves and start to represent the people instead of just big companies wasting money and all the rest of it. We need to get back to basics.
Do you think that there's a few independents running, does that help?
Well, I'll certainly be voting for one myself. I know a little bit about the person I'm going to vote for, but I think it's important to get independents in because even if individuals within a party might want to vote against the party line, they're not permitted to, or they basically get kicked out of the party. So I think it is important for people to follow their own beliefs and not just follow party lines.
So what are you thinking about with this election?
At the moment, I think the biggest thing that I find is living rural is transport issues. So anyone who's willing to sort of get a push to get more public transport in the rural area is a big plus for me.
Yeah, what sort of impact does it have on you not having that level of transport?
It's a bit harder to get around and do things like I've got a school-aged child, so school buses are fine, but for me to be able to get anywhere to sort of get things for him, it's a bit harder at the moment.
Some of the voices in Goyder there that we spoke to this week. Before we kick things off, let's take a look at the seat. Created after a redistribution in 1990, the division of Goyder lies southeast of Darwin and includes the suburbs and towns of Acacia Hills, Bees Creek, Humpty Doo, Lambles Lagoon, Lloyd Creek, Mackay, Middle Point, Mount Bundy, Noonamar and Virginia. So it's a big seat. While the Palmerston sprawl is inching ever closer. Goyder was held by the major parties until 2015 when former CLP Deputy Leader Kezia Purik turned independent. Hers has been a huge stint. She has been in Parliament since 2008 and this election is departing, paving the way for a new face for Goyder. Who will it be? With me is Labor candidate Sandy Griffin, CLP candidate Andrew Mackay and two independent candidates in the running, Belinda Kolstad and Mathew Salter. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for sharing your microphones. I really appreciate that. Let's go around the table. Let's start with you, Sandy Griffin. The last time Labor won this seat was in 2005, Ted Warren, in a landslide where Labor won 19 seats. Nobody's predicting that this time. What would you bring to Parliament?
I want change. And so the reason I put my hand up as a member of the Labor Party is to be at the table informing decisions. So, listening to some of the voter comments earlier about, we need to change, we need to actually mix things up a bit, and a party member only following party lines, I put my hand up because that's not how I want to work. I want to be able to have informed discussions with my colleagues and influence those decisions, not just toe the line. That's not me. That's never been me. So that's my commitment to this electorate, that I would actually work for them to influence those decisions as they're being made, as those policies are being made.
Sandy, thank you. Andrew Mackay is the CLP candidate for Goyder. Andrew, you grew up here while Goyder was represented by Kezia Purik, first for the CLP and then as an independent. What would you offer as an MLA that she couldn't?
One thing that I'll be able to offer is hopefully I'll be a member of a CLP government. It has been a long time since both Goyder and Nelson were held by a government of the day. And by doing that, I'll be able to be part of the team that can actually make decisions, not just complain about them after the fact, and influence policy to make sure Goyder gets its fair share.
Belinda Kolstad, you have the backing of the current member, Kezia Purik, who's here today, but ran for pre-selection with the CLP. Why should people believe you'll represent them as a true independent?
Okay, guys. Look, I sat with the CLP for 6 months prior to pulling out from politics before deciding that independent was the way to go. I'm really glad I did that. It gave us a really good insight into party politics and found that I couldn't represent the people the way I wish to represent the people as part of the party. So that's where independent come into us as a family. We moved up to Darwin 10 years ago. I've worked as a volunteer firefighter for decades in a lot of rural settings across Australia, with 10 years being served here in the Northern Territory. We had our heart and our passion behind the rural area and the seat of Goyder for a long time as a family. So when the opportunity arose for myself to stand up and jump into politics, it was just the right time for us, and I really feel that I'm a hard, honest, dedicated working person, and I will work hard to serve the people of Goyder.
Belinda Kolstad there, an independent candidate for Goyder. Mathew Salter is another independent candidate. Mathew, Tony Abbott described himself as the love child of Bronwyn Bishop and John Howard, two politicians he admired and who publicly backed his entire political career. You've described yourself many times as the love child of Kezia Purik and Jerry Wood, over the objections of the former and without the support of the latter. Why?
Good morning, Rick. And let me just say, like the viewer or the listener that rang in, I love Darwin. I love the rural area. I've lived here for 35 years. I thought about joining council 10 years ago. Why? To help out, to try and preserve what we've got. And that's basically why I'm I've hit the wall at council. Some of the issues now, I need to step up. We need to address some of the significant issues that I'll expand upon a bit later. In terms of politics, it's a game, and I don't want to take things too seriously. That's why I did... Look, Kezia, her sister preceded me on Litchfield Council. I taught kids up at Camilda. We've been tied together over probably 14 years. We do the seniors poetry at Taminmin Library. So inextricably, both Jerry and Kezia have been tied to me, and they are great role models. If I can live up to just a bit of what they've achieved, well, I've done a good job.
Goyder is on the edge of the Darwin and Palmerston to get to the serious issues of this debate about urban development. As the cities move outward, there'll be more pressure on land that has traditionally been zoned as rural living. I want to ask each of the candidates, starting with Sandy Griffin from Labor, what do you see as the future of the rural area when it comes to new developments?
Great question, and as one of your listeners pointed out, one of the big challenges for our future generation is home ownership. What the Labor government is trying to do is release land. If you look at the Holtz development, there's 11,000 lots going there. You've got Northcrest and you've got Waddell. We've also got the Humpty Doo Rural Activity Centre, the Coolalinga Rural Activity Centre, which have both been controversial in terms of lot sizes. And that is something that I think every candidate here is aware of, that there is concern about micro blocks in a rural setting. My particular take on that is that we do need diversity in block sizes. Not everybody can afford a 5-acre, 10-acre plus property. They also require a lot of maintenance, and not everyone has the physical or financial means to maintain those larger blocks. If I look at my own circumstance with family, I would have preferred my parents to be able to move to a smaller property in the rural area as they aged, so that there was less stress on them. Those options weren't available. I think we need to be sensible. We need to not put micro blocks right in smack bang in the middle of large rural acreage, as has been proposed at Noonamar previously, but I can tell you now that is not a priority for government. I've confirmed that. And what we really need to do is just look at it appropriately for the whole of the community. We've got people struggling, and if I'm elected, I will sit down with the Planning Commission as a priority. I've worked with the Planning Commissioner previously. I've got a good relationship there that I think I can work with to get to the bottom of these issues.
Andrew Mackay is the CLP candidate. Same question. What's the future of the rural area when it comes to new developments?
Thanks, Rick. Well, let me start by saying, as somebody who has served on Litchfield Council, and I'm sure Mathew will elaborate on this later, we have fought to make sure the Litchfield boundaries remain the same, and that Holtz will remain within Litchfield Council, and that everywhere up and Howard Springs and Fellows Road at the tip there will remain in Litchfield Council. We don't want Palmerston out here. One thing we need to think about for the future, and Sandy did hit the nail on the head, is that not everyone can afford large blocks. That doesn't mean we want another Palmerston out in the rural area, but I'd like to see more 5-acre blocks opening up. And one thing to keep in mind with all these area plans is it never forces anyone to subdivide. It's still a choice, and you can't subdivide unless there is adequate services, and that includes town water in the rural area.
Belinda Kolstad, an independent candidate for Goyder. What are your thoughts on new developments in the rural area?
We all need to see development and wealth come into the territory, and especially into the rural. I would not like to see our rural area cut up into small-sized blocks. We're seeing that at the moment with the proposal behind Holtz. I haven't seen the CLP or major parties kick up much of a stink on Holtz and what is happening there at the moment. I know it's not part of our electorate, but it's something I'm certainly watching closely. We've got a lot of potential in Darwin. We've got a lot of potential for Waddell. Waddell is something, I'd like to ask both the Labor and the CLP government, will they commit to it? Why won't they bring it online? It's time to bring Waddell online now. Somewhere where we've got green spaces, somewhere where we can plan and think and build the rural lifestyle that we want. I don't know why at the moment we're looking at cramming everyone in together when we have the potential for somewhere like Waddell.
Might ask the major parties that in a second, but we'll let Mathew go first. Mathew Salter, the independent candidate.
Yeah, good morning again. This is something that I'm very, very passionate about. I love the rural area, and the reason that I like it is that you're living with nature. And the candidates today haven't spoken about what constitutes a rural block. Now, 0.4 of a hectare is 1 acre, and you cannot include the bush in 1 acre. What is happening, and I've got first-hand experience of this, is the entire 4,000 metres is stripped, and after you've put a house on it, and after you've put a double garage, and after you put a shed and a bit of lawn, there's nothing left for the bush. People live in the rural area because they love lizards, they love kookaburras. You're actually with nature. So when you come home, you can kick back. The minimum sized lot has to be 1 hectare or 2.5 acres. And that's what we've been fighting for. Now, where we're located here, right along the Arnhem Highway, from the Stewart Highway to the Humpty Doo Hotel, there is a plan that will chop up this area into 1 acre or 4,000 metre blocks, and it hasn't even addressed the 3 watercourses that are there. It's going to be a major issue because you've got runoff, you've got 500 trucks taking triple road trains, taking rock to the Darwin shiplift. You've got massive noise, dust. We need to make sure that the people of the rural area talk about this, understand what the policy is, and then we can go to the Planning Commission. I mentioned previously, I should have done a petition early on. It's still not out of the cards. Let's listen to what people out here want.
And just quickly, Belinda Kolstad has asked the major parties about Waddell. Just very shortly, Sandy Griffin, what's their position from the Labor Party on Waddell?
Belinda needs to go and have a look at the Labor government's infrastructure strategy. It's included. Waddell's in there.
Waddell's been in the plans for a long time. It just hasn't been built.
And this has got a time frame. And there's a Waddell Highway, there's the freeway. It's now out there with time frames committed to.
Andrew Mackay from the CLP.
Firstly, let me just start by saying I support the Holtz development. There's very little impact on existing residents who live there. There's a massive buffer zone between where people live and what roads they access. There is a hospital there. There'll be a medical precinct. There'll be aged care housing. There'll be defence housing. That development will be the future of Litchfield Council, sustainable financially. And secondly, the issue of building Waddell is just shifting the problem. You know, that's just, let's put all the people over by Berry Springs, they're not now electorate. That's not planning. That's not forward thinking. You know, just saying build Waddell isn't going to solve any issues. It's just going to kick it down the road for somebody else. We need to look at sustainable development in our rural area. And I don't support another Palmerston all the way out in Noonamah Ridge. I don't support it out at Mackay, for example. But you know, where Holt is located, close to Palmerston, close to other services, close to a hospital in Litchfield, that is the perfect place for a suburb.
You're listening to ABC Radio Darwin. It's 9:30.
Breakfast with Adam Steer. Weekdays from 6.
Dr. Kirsty Howie is the Director of the Environment Centre in the Northern Territory. The group is heading to court to challenge the approval of a Tamboran Resources Project 15 new wells in the Beetaloo.
It is a significant proposal. It's the largest one we've seen. This is an aquifer that discharges into iconic places like Bitter Springs, Mataranka, the Roper River. So we're talking about some of the most highly valued water resources in the Territory.
On 105.7
ABC Radio Darwin.
Rick Hind with you on 105.7 ABC Radio Darwin. We're broadcasting live from Humpty Doo Plaza in the middle of Goyder, an election that will have a new member come the 24th of August. You've heard discussion there about water. Mathew Salter's raised it already in the debate. Water licences were established by Labor in 2016, but what's the future of water in Goyder? Let's unpack some of the issues here. How can the growing number of people living in the Darwin rural area coexist with irrigated agriculture? At the moment, farmers have water meters, block owners don't, and they don't have to pay for water either. Should they be paying? You can see some fairly green lawns around here. Shouldn't everyone have a water meter? What are your thoughts about the future of water in this electorate, Sandy Griffin?
Yep, great question. The Labor government is the first government to establish a Office of Water Security. They're looking at water sustainability over the longer term for future generations. In particular, if you look at the Adelaide River offtake water storage project, that is designed for ensuring we're not over-reliant on groundwater, so that we're not seeing impacts like we did with the Howard Springs bore field many years ago, where groundwater levels did dip and it did affect rural residents. So this government has planned ahead, is really focused on providing a sustainable source of water. In terms of groundwater and users and rural block owners, the current law requires an extraction licence if you take out 5 million litres per year or more. Anything below that, and it doesn't matter whether you're a resident watering your lawn or an agribusiness, there is certainty there as to where the limit is. And that's not based on an arbitrary number, that's based on science, that's based on understanding the aquifer sizes and sustainable use. And this government will continue to look at improvements to groundwater management and surface water management over time.
Sandy Griffin there, the Labor candidate. Andrew Mackay, the CLP candidate. What's the future for water in Goyder?
Firstly, the CLP has committed to no meters on residential bores. That's just an important thing to remember. You know, there's no point trying to meter or charge people for water where they've paid for the infrastructure. They're taking a very small amount on the grand scheme of things, and that's why we'll leave residential bores alone. The future of water in the rural area is town water, the town water system, and that's why the CLP does support the Manton Dam back to service plan, which is works very recently from memory. As long as Manton Dam stays open for recreation, that is also important. But that's the first step, and then later down the track, in principle, support for Arrows once we know a bit more of the finer details there. But we need to have a water supply for Darwin. You need water to live, you need water to grow. We have a lot of farmers as well as residents out here who are relying on the water table, and this will help ease that pressure.
You're listening to 105.7 ABC Radio Darwin. We're doing the Goyder Candidates Forum from Humpty Doo Plaza. Belinda Kolstad is an independent candidate for Goyder. The future of water in this electorate?
That's a really great question. Thank you for that one. Look, the water in Goyder is something that, or in the rural in general, water security is one of our really biggest issues out that way. Look, we've got lots of things, in the plans. I do believe, meters on rural bores has been laid to rest over the previous years. If this comes up again, I'll certainly be fighting against any metering of bores, out in the rural for our rural residents. The bringing Manton Dam back online, that is currently, in the process. That will help relieve things a little bit. Our rural residents are really conscious of their water usage. But Arrows project, that's due to come online at about 2031. That dam will sort of be situated out towards Adelaide River, between Adelaide River and Lake Bennett. When it comes to agriculture, in the rural, that's really big. We've got a lot of agricultural land through Lambles Lagoon and things heading out there. I know there is a direct pipeline that is going to run from the Arrows project through to Lambles Lagoon. I'm not quite sure on the logistics of that as yet, but I am certain that that is happening, and that will then help ease a little bit with agricultural and things happening out that way.
Mathew Salter, independent candidate for Goyder.
Look, Rick, I was on the Howard East Water Committee for 2 years, and when you're on those sorts of committees, you get a really good understanding of what the people think. And when I was door knocking, I bumped into a guy called Michael Dunn who lives on Buckley Road. He's a commercial grower. And he said to me, Mathew, I'm not a happy man. And I said, what's up? And he said, look, I complied with the government. They put a meter on my bore, This year they're introducing a $500 fee, which is annual, for me to have that bore registered. And he's concerned that next year it's going to be $1,000, and then the year after that it's just going to keep climbing. So my advice to rural residents that have bores is don't let anyone near your property. Don't certainly volunteer to get a meter on there, because it's the thin end of the wedge. I'm happy that the government are recommissioning the down at Mountain Dam. I'm happy that the government have got the Arrows project going on. But another issue that has come up time and time again, and I know a lot of listeners will relate to this one, sometimes these big mining companies don't have any charge at all. There's no metering on what they pay in terms of water. This is what I've heard. I might stand to be corrected, but I'm pretty sure that there is no charge for water on several of these big industrial developments.
We might leave the water topic there. One of the big issues, especially this year, is the road toll. Many of the people who've died in the NT's appalling road toll this year lived in the Darwin rural area. I've noticed just driving out here today, the signs talking about the comparison between this year and last year. It's horrific. What would you do to reduce the road toll? Sandy Griffin.
I can only agree that Goyder has a disproportionate number of fatalities on our roads, and it's really not surprising given we've got cattle, we've got gravel, we've got tourism, we've got fishermen, we've got residents, we've got school buses, we've got really busy roads. The Arnhem Highway duplication project, the concept plan is out for that, is now done. That's a 10-kilometre of duplicating the Arnhem Highway from the Stewart Highway turn-off to Cosca Road. I think it still needs some tweaking. I'm not sure that traffic lights are going to work with that amount of traffic in the middle of Humpty Doo. So that, I think, does need more discussion. We've had a $100 million investment in the Arnhem Highway, Adelaide River floodplain, which was great this year, seeing the old road 2 metres underwater, but we could still come to town. So that was great. But in terms of the road toll, the Labor's just released its Towards Zero road safety program. It's focused on road users, road safety and vehicle safety. That was developed in consultation with police, Aboriginal community members and so on. But in Goyder specifically, I actually would really like to see road users start taking a little bit of responsibility. The number of people who fly through this area, speeding constantly, up your butt. I see buffalo on the way home just about every day, and if I have to slam my brakes on, we're all in big trouble. We've got too many fatalities.
So are our speed limits too high for the quality of the road infrastructure in this electorate?
I don't think they are too high. I think road users need to start taking a little bit of responsibility and respecting that these roads are shared.
CLP candidate Andrew Mackay, what are your thoughts about how to reduce the road toll?
So the road safety is really important to me. So I went to the school just around the corner from here at Taminmin when I was growing up, and for the last 2 years there when I was driving to school as a P-plater, that intersection, the Humpty Doo Shop Arnhem Highway intersection, as well as where the post office used to be at the Boxing Croc. Every year that I went to school at Taminmin, there was a fatality on at least one of those intersections. And that's why I'm proud that the CLP team, we looked at the Arnhem duplication project, went on Litchfield Council, we asked the department about it, when is this going to be funded? We'd love to see some safety upgrades. They said not for 10 years. So the CLP has committed to upgrading the Humpty Doo Shops, Freds Pass Road, Arnhem Highway intersection. On Litchfield Council, we also advocated for the Bees Creek Road, Stewart Highway intersection near the primary school there. And that's actual delivering outcomes. I want our roads to be safe. There is some aspect to the disproportionate amount of tourism and other accidents that do happen in our area, which aren't necessarily locals, but it is still absolutely devastating to drive past people the crosses on the side of the road every day. And growing up here, I know quite a few of those people, and it's not good enough.
You're a young man driving in this electorate. This part of Darwin is the most dangerous part of the Northern Territory for young men on the roads. Do we need to just slow down? Is it time for the NT to leave its fast speed limits behind?
The speed limits aren't the problem. It's not the speed limits, it's people speeding, right? If everyone followed the speed limit, it wouldn't be an issue. People doing 160 k's an hour down the Arnhem Highway, that's an issue. People doing 100 when it's good visibility, always drive to conditions. I don't believe it's the speed limits. There's been an awful lot of speed cameras out here lately, so it'd be interesting to see their numbers. But I don't believe it's the speed limits that is causing this issue.
Belinda Kolstad is independent candidate for Goyder. How do we reduce the road toll?
Thank you for that question. Look, it's almost uncomprehendable the amount of fatalities we've had up here, this year. Working in emergency services for nearly 25 years, I've seen a lot of road fatalities. Out here, it's a mindset. It's something that we don't know why it's happening at the moment. The experts don't know why this has been happening, why we have seen such high numbers. But it's not just here, it's right across the world. If you look at some of the reports that are out at the moment, since COVID, we have seen astronomical figures with our road tolls. I have a 17-year-old daughter. She is currently on her L plates. It is terrifying to think that she will be out on these roads. I would really like to see some education come back into this. I don't believe, we need to go back to grassroots almost with our children as well and educate them about our roads, educate them about road trains. I'd really like to see our school constable program come back into place in our schools here in the Territory, where our school constables can teach our children about road safety and how to use our roads. I'm not quite sure, whether our speed limits and things are something that affect this. I believe it's people's mentality at the moment. We're seeing a lot more aggression on our roads. We're seeing a lot more of these issues, happening. Yes, we absolutely need some upgrades to some of our intersections, here at in the Goyder electorate. I've had 3 people hit on Bees Creek Road in 2 years. It's absolutely horrendous, and I'm not quite sure what the answer is on this one. Certainly we need some more money spent in these areas, but I do believe, helping our children, educating our children and getting our constable-based school program happening again will make a huge difference.
Belinda Kolstad, they're the independent candidate for Goyder. Aggression on the roads, we've spoken to experts who say it is linked to COVID and post-COVID behaviour everywhere. It's very bad here. Mathew Salter, what would you do to reduce the road toll?
I'm going to take a little bit of a historic journey here. The rural area developed organically. Self-government was in 1976, but council didn't start till about 84, I think it was. So what happened is, we're not like Palmerston, where they do entire blocks. We've developed organically, so there hasn't been a lot of town planning that's gone on. That's why the roads are what they're like. And they're not great. When I first started on council back in 2012, man alive, there was some pretty hot issues. Even now, I'm pretty sure we've only got 275 streetlights in the rural area. So we don't have streetlights. The planning has been ad hoc. This is a recipe that causes trouble. Slowly we're getting around to addressing these issues, and council hasn't got a lot of money. They should be advocating to the Northern Territory government, hence my job as, if I can get into the Northern Territory government, I'll be able to give first-hand experience of these sorts of things. But I'll give you another example. I was driving along Lowther Road at Bees Creek the other week, and just before Holly Road, it is quite scary, the fact that you can fall. If you drive off the road, you can drop about 4 metres either side of the road. There needs to be safety rails. Now, this is just a little example. These examples litter the rural area. There's just so much. We really do need a cash injection. But the biggest issue is it's been unplanned out here, and people like it that way. But if you're a new person to the area and you've had a few beers and you want to drive home, you cannot predict what the roads are going to do. So I think that's going to contribute.
Mathew Salter, their independent candidate for Goyder. We're at Humpty Doo Plaza talking to candidates in the rural area seat of Goyder for the NT election. 10 days to go until Election Day. Voluntary assisted dying is legal in all states and territories now, except the Northern Territory, where the legislation was first introduced anywhere in the world. A recent report recommended it be legalised in the NT. We'll ask each candidate this question. What is your personal view on voluntary assisted dying, and how would you vote on a private member's bill if it came to the floor of the Legislative Assembly? Sandy Griffin from Labor.
Yep, great question. I'm happy to go on the public record to say that I do support voluntary assisted dying legislation. The recent consultation had a huge response. There were organisations responding, but also individuals. Almost 1,400, overwhelmingly, 73% said yes, they do support it. And interestingly, 71% they also supported a system for those who are later diagnosed with dementia. Very supportive of it. I respect the different cultural and religious views on this. What the legislation will do is provide choices for the residents of the Northern Territory, for those who do wish to access it.
The final report didn't recommend, though, that there was access for people who didn't have the capacity to make their own decisions.
I think they were a bit grey on that one. I don't think it was that clear, Rick.
Andrew Mackay from the CLP.
It'll be my job as an elected member of Parliament to represent the views of my constituents. I'm personally in favour of voluntary assisted dying. Until we see the specific details, we need to make sure it's in line with community expectations regarding accessibility and who can access the scheme and how it's administered. Personally in favour, but it's my job to represent the views of the constituents. So I look forward to consulting with them before casting a vote.
Andrew Mackay, thank you. Belinda Kolstad, independent candidate for Goyder.
Thank you, mate. Look, I support voluntary assisted dying. I always have. I believe, there are lots of fronts to it, and we do really need to take into consideration our religious views and things like that. With the recommendations that have come out, there's a couple of things, within those recommendations. One is a time frame around this actually being put into place if it passes through Parliament. I'd really like to see both major parties commit to legislation bringing this in place within 2 years. I believe, and I've spoken with a lot of constituents within the electorate on this issue, and most constituents I've spoken to do support voluntary assisted dying as well. I'd really like to see this come into place, and I'd like to see it come into place within a reasonable time frame.
Mathew Salter.
Yeah, look, I think we were at the forefront, Marshall Perrin all those years ago, and we get it overturned by that Kevin Andrews weasel down in Canberra. This should have been implemented years ago. We really do need to get this, and I hope it's not 2 years. I hope it's quicker than that.
So all four candidates at the candidates forum this morning supportive of voluntary assisted dying pending community consultation. Got a quick question from our colleagues at the Country Hour about mangoes. We've been hearing on the Country Hour recently about mango twig tip dieback. Farmers are calling on the parties for financial relief and support to combat the dieback. We're in a rural electorate. Mango farming is extremely important for the NT. Do you support this call? And have you heard from farmers on this issue? Sandy Griffin.
Yep. No, I haven't heard from farmers on this issue, but more broadly, biosecurity is something that I have experience in, and not just biosecurity. I want to see a lot more support for our agribusinesses in general, including from things like impact from bushfires, where they've lost infrastructure, irrigation. We've seen the impacts on agribusiness from banana freckle and the measures in place there. It's a big issue, and I don't think it's been addressed as comprehensively as perhaps we could. So that's something that, if elected, I'm very keen to take up.
Andrew Mackay, the CLP candidate.
I've had the issue raised with me from a couple mango farmers who are concerned about it. I'm yet to meet someone who has been affected by the problem, but they're very nervous. And it'll be engaging with NT farmers and the Mango Association to work out if government support is needed and what that support might look like.
Belinda Kolstad, independent candidate. On mango dieback, the mango twig tip dieback, financial support for farmers?
Look, I am acutely aware of this issue. I have spoken to some mango farmers. A lot of I was actually out with the Cambodians on Monday out in Lambill's Lagoon, and their mango season, due to cooler weather this year, come on really early, and they were actually out picking on their day of rest on this Monday, trying to get the mangoes in and to market as quickly as possible, because the heat at the moment is affecting the mangoes throughout the day. Look, this is something that I have not seen in full effect, but I do believe, it's something we need to watch extremely closely. I have heard of, but cannot confirm, one farm a little bit further out on the Armand Highway who I have heard has ploughed over 300 trees because of this. And then we need to take, into consideration the impacts we're currently seeing at the moment, and we have seen literally over the last few weeks, from yesterday at Lambill's Lagoon, where we lost a lot of crops, including mangoes, with severe fire weather. And last Saturday, we also seen some of our Vietnamese out at Mackay lose a lot of their crops and things as well. So there's going to be, a lot of ongoing support that these communities are going to need around this, and we need to take that and have a look at that as a whole.
Mathew Salter, twig tick dieback, but I guess also the issues that have been raised in the rural area and farmers from farmers with you.
Yeah, look, it's an issue, and as the biggest mango grower in the territory, this area represents that. Look, I just don't think we can do too much. NT farmers do a great job. They'll publicise, they'll advocate, they'll come to government and say we need to support this or not, but I'm sure the mango growers at this stage would be so busy getting in their crop, they won't be able to do anything until about November, I'd imagine. So, yeah, that's fine.
And just finally, look, we did want to focus on issues that are of particular concern to rural area voters, but crime, has there been an increase in break-ins here? Is there a public safety concern in the rural area specifically? Sandy, and if you could keep your answers short, please.
Yep. Look, community safety is not immune in the rural area. We'd also have crime. There has been increase in crime. This government, and I support their approach, is not about locking kids up. It's not about just addressing the issue after the fact. It's going to housing, education, family dysfunction, family violence, alcohol. We've got to get right back to the basics. And it was really good to hear from the Criminal Law Society this morning pointing out some of the misinformation that's been spouted about the current laws.
The CLP's Andrew Mackay.
The unfortunate reality is crime is coming to the rural area. I've been speaking to residents, especially behind the shops here and down the road at the other little urban development.
No,
that's still going, sorry. People are finding more and more people wandering around, more torches at night. I know one bloke out in Acacia who's had his car stolen 3 times. He now leaves his back left wheel off. He takes it off every time he parks his car because he figures that'll stop him. Every time he wants to go down to the shops, he puts it back on, and to his credit, he's much quicker at putting a tyre on than I am. But it's a ridiculous measure to have to take.
Belinda Kolstad, crime in the rural area, what are you noticing? How bad is it at the moment?
We seem to see crime in spouts out here in the rural. It seems to happen. I know a few weeks back we had a spout of cars. There was one burnt out on Virginia Road, a beautiful new Prado. So we do see it, come and go in spouts. I've spoken with rural residents, one in particular, who not long ago, had someone at their bedside table, which is terrifying and left, ongoing effects from that. We don't want to see more crime come out to the rural. It's not at the forefront of what's happening in the rural, but we certainly don't want to see it. Then we see our families being affected by it when they have to travel into Palmerston or into other areas for services, for going out for dinner. Most rural people will not head into the waterfront for dinner because it is much nicer to head out to a rural pub where they don't have to deal with this crime and these antisocial issues going on. So we certainly do need to pay attention to it. We really, really do need to go back to grassroots on some of these problems, but it's not at the forefront out here in the rural.
Mathew Salter, just quickly, we don't have much time before the news.
Look, we need to be vigilant. If you do the crime, you should do the time. I think we need boot camps. It's too big a problem for just one side of politics. I hate the fact that the CLP are finger-pointing at the Labor Party. There is such a thing as a conscience vote where both sides come together and have a look at these sorts of issues. But we need to make sure that if you do that crime, you have to do that time.
Mathew Salter, independent candidate, I should say, for Goyder. Sandy Griffin from the Labor Party. Belinda Kolstad, another independent candidate for Goyder, and Andrea Mackay from the CLP. Thanks so much for spending time with us and going through the issues for your electorate on 105.7 ABC Radio Darwin. Thank you. Coming up after the 10 o'clock news with Meredith Lake. Meredith wants to know about your favourite memories of stargazing, the best things you've seen in the night sky, your earliest memories. I'm going to find out from a local astronomer why Central Australia is one of the best places anywhere to feast your eyes on the stars. Can certainly speak to that from personal experience. Thanks for joining us on 105.7 ABC Radio Darwin from Humpty Doo Plaza. It's news time.
NT Votes 2024. Analysing the issues that count.
Law and order, of course, has been a big issue.
Health, policing, schooling.
I think youth crime is an issue.
On 105.7 ABC Radio Darwin.